Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing wrong with your television sets. We interrupt this program to bring you an entry in the archives of the Association of Ishtar, a chilling report on the discovery in the Texas desert. Ladies and gentlemen, this Halloween Radio Retro Future brings you a chilling tale called A Day in Quiescis.
To Dr. Brandy. Dear Doctor, I return this file to you because I do not know what to do with its contents. It just contains a note signed by you, dated the 5th of February 1865. That was 5 years ago. Has there been any documentation on this entry? If so, please ensure it reaches the archives desk so these records can be filed properly. Thanks in advance.
Dear Associate, at this time it's advised that Associates avoid P-13. Would you be required to enter the facility? Level 2 hazard protection is strongly advised. Proper inquiries into the origin and purpose of the P-13 complex are still being conducted. Recently, I did receive this debriefing of Associate 299, dated 17th of November, 1864, after the discovery of the facility designated P-13. It comes across as a cowboy yarn to me, pun intended. But maybe it includes some of the information that you're looking for. Further information will follow shortly. Yours truly, Dr. Brandy.
The following is an excerpt from the debriefing of Associate 299. Topic: the discovery of an unknown facility and disappearance of Associate 490. Interviewer: Dr. Tequila. Interviewed: Associate 299.
You knew Associate 490, didn't you?
Only by number and tribulation.
Any idea why he broke his oath?
Why, I think I do, good man. But I would have to tell you the full story, for I happen to know what I'm about to tell you your boys don't have on file. Is it a good one? I'd be careful if I were you. You're not gonna like it. Those tend to be the most interesting ones. All right. So it all started, like all good tales, out on the prairie. 490 and I were chasing a reported outsider in the Chihuahua Desert, Texas. 490 is one of those with crow blood. Spent his years off and on the reservation. He knew the land well and was a decent trekker. He would do the trekking and I would do the shooting. A bit superstitious, though, but most folk who spend enough time on the prairie tend to be. Those stretches of land can make you see things. I believe it's what drove him to become an associate. Believing there's more to the rift than meets the eye, and he connected them to the legends of his ancestors. Now, you don't have to live on the prairie to believe that. I'm telling you this because I wager those beliefs are what drove him over the edge. So we were hunting this outsider on behalf of the local ranchers. Realized that we're not supposed to be guns for hire, but the routine of advising people on how to contain rats and all that does not work out here. We're talking Nomansville. The Mexican-American War didn't help in that situation. Our countrymen are still at each other's throats for years to come, by the looks of it. After 2 days, we managed to track the outsider down, a lonely beast the size of 2 buffaloes. And posture was kind of like that too, well, more ape-like. How do you describe something that's part ape, mushroom, and frog crocodile? Anyway, that thing belongs in the swamp somewhere, not the Chihuahua Desert. It lodged itself in a watering hole, and I assume it only came out when hungry. Good thing 490 had some experience with javelins, because we needed to blow that bitch up with dynamite. It wasn't too big a hassle, all things considered. Once we got accustomed to its appearance, we dared to come closer and torpedoed him with our explosives. That's when we discovered this kind of mushroomy. We never discovered the river it came from, by the by. Anyway, after a job well done, we entered a small town. One of them that used to be Mexican but got annexed after the war. The young folk had left by the time we got there, and those who remained were just the old folk who provided shelter to cowboys and travelers. It was getting dark, so we decided to take an hotel for the night. Well, that fateful evening, we were preparing for bed when 490 looked out of the window of her room. I still remember vividly how he stood there with a bottle in his hand, staring in the distance as if he knew there was something not quite right out there in the dark. "Are there any other towns nearby?" he asked. "Not for miles," I said. "Why?" "Then what the fuck am I looking at?" he said. I apologize for the language, but I never heard him talk like that before either. That's when I got up and joined him, and there it was. Countless lights, all neatly arranged in a checkered pattern just by the mountain range. I checked our map again, but there was no mention of any town in that direction. Maybe a Confederate fort then, I thought. Well, the next morning, over breakfast, I asked our hostess about the lights that we saw. And that's when our suspicions were roused something fierce. She shook her head. "No, senor, there is no camp, no soldiers." "But we saw lights burning last night near the mountains," I said. That's when her eyes grew larger. I was afraid it would pop out of her skull and looked at us as if we had just invited the devil himself in our hotel. "Senor, there's nothing out there," she insisted. Her insistence was unsettling. And of course, we didn't believe a word of it. Now, personally, I thought we should have let it be, but 490, man. He looked pale, like he was running a fever. "We need to look," he said. "I need to see there's nothing out there." Those lights really upset him. All right, I said, "we'll go." No. We did attempt to get some information from the locals beforehand, but they were tight-lipped. Every time we mentioned the lights, they politely tried to get rid of us after mumbling something about kettle fields and soldiers passing through. Just mentioning those mountains seemed to inspire dread. "No, senor, stay away from there. Only the wicked go there to drink with the devil," said one. No wonder the young'uns left. Now then, while heading out, we met a caravaner on the road. Said he carrying liquor across the border. We didn't question the legality of it. He did, however, give us some insights. He claimed there had been a temporary settlement where they sent sick people to die. Tuberculosis patients. At least that was his explanation. I asked if the complex was Mexican or American. He wouldn't answer that, but as far as he remembered, the place was abandoned when he first arrived. I figured these folks are concerned about stirring the souls of the dead, or something like that. But 490 seemed incredulous, and wouldn't rest till he'd seen that place for himself. Now, to be honest, by now those lights in the night drew me like moths to a flame. Couldn't help myself, could I? It was past noon when we arrived at the gates of the non-existent settlement, eager to find shelter against the sun. A gated community with a pearly perimeter. Above its white walls rose the roofs of a large building like a sanatorium, and there were houses too, but no people. Above the ornamental gate, that was locked with a large padlock, was the name of the place in cast iron. Quiescis. Can I have another? Yeah, thanks. Now, I'll tell you, just standing in front of the sign made my hair stand on end, and If either of us were there by ourselves, none of us would have considered even coming near that place. There were two of us, and both were too embarrassed to admit how terrified we were. So we went inside through a collapsed section in the wall. Now, I traversed rifts and have seen strange worlds, but none felt as alien or hostile as Quiescis. Most of the buildings were not but ruins. Unfortunately, it wasn't just age. Inside of the perimeter wall, there were bullet holes on the inside. Whatever threat ended this community was inside before anyone could react, or more likely, it had been with them all along. We followed the main road from the gate to a plaza with a large fountain in the middle. From there, the road split in two other directions. The community to the west and a sanatorium to the east. That hospital looked more foreboding than anything I'd ever seen. Something about its odd architecture. It had some Italian themes going on, like square flooded roof towers, and either side of the entrances like a church. Then it had some, let's say, Mesoamerican features like animal-shaped brackets supporting the roof. I've never seen those combined before, but I'm no architect, right? So without saying a word to each other, we walked in the direction of the houses. Unfortunately, these had the same Renaissance style. Not as grand, mind you, but enough to make us nervous. You could just feel something bad happened here, and we had noticed no sources of light. No buildings I would consider safe or worth squatting in. We already walked past some of the ruins when suddenly we heard something collapse inside one of the houses. Scared stiff, we looked at each other, and, "Is anyone there?" I cried. I kinda hoped it was a coyote or something. But that is when we saw two shadows move. Two Mexican children walked out of the house. A little girl and a boy holding a lantern. They glared at us as scared children tend to do when they're doing something they're not supposed to. "What in tarnation are you two doing here?" I asked. The girl hid behind the boy. "Exploring," she said. "This place is dangerous. Get out of here." I wanted to run off, but 490 stopped him. "Wait," he said. "Is there anything in there?" And the two looked at each other. "Don't go inside the temple," said the boy. And then the two ran off again. "What temple?" we cried after them, but they had already disappeared between the ruins. Kind of embarrassing. I would say that two children were braver than we were, and even after that we didn't dare to enter any of the homes. Yeah. That is when we found this small cubicle building. Its heavy metal doors being wide open. Utterly unremarkable at first glance. But we thought it would provide us with some clues on what's going on here. But when we opened the door, we were confronted with this symbol. Like a marker.
Marker?
Yeah. An outlandish glyph of sorts, like a crescent moon and a dot. And tentacles, 3 of them. Kinda like a jellyfish. Even had an arrow shape through the middle tentacle as if it told us to leave.
Are you feeling alright?
Now that I think of it, it was really rusty. I want to know if that read. Whatever the case, it riled up 490 something fierce, and Auntie just stormed in. By the time I looked inside, he was already descending down a wide staircase leading down to where the sun don't shine. Fool that I was, I followed him downstairs with nothing but a simple lantern. After passing an antechamber, it became obvious very quickly this wasn't just any town. There was a tunnel down there, running down the length of the whole settlement, it seemed. The place was littered with beds and wheelchairs and other hospital furnishings, and there were doors, many doors, heavy double doors of steel. Without saying a word, 490 grabbed one of the door handles. I hoped it would be locked, but no. The door creaked as crusts of rust flaked off the hinges. We peeked inside that dark place. There was a light coming into the space from above that, instead of a hospital room or morgue, seemed to be a typical living room or dining area inside of a basement. There was a table surrounded by several chairs and a dining plate still on them, covered in layers of mold and dust. There was a staircase going up to where the beams of sunlight filtered through the debris blocking the entrance. As we continued to explore, we walked past bedrooms, offices, rooms with operating tables, even a morgue. But a particular block of rooms stood out from the rest. It had several observation cells, small rooms with large glass windows and autopsy tables inside. These rooms were naturally small, with no space left for any equipment. The surface of these tables were grates, and there were drawers underneath, like they were collecting something coming out of the bodies. Look, I'm no doc. All I'm saying is these folks were not suffering from tuberculosis, okay? About that time we heard this unsettling whining from down the hall, like voices speaking through a poorly tuned radio. Through the buzzing of white noise, there was a unsettling moaning that surrounded like a creaking of shutters swaying in the wind. Despite the tumult, we continued to see a red light shining into the hallway from inside another room. It was flickering as if random shapes were passing through the light like leaves drifting on the wind. 490 was right behind when I peeked around the corner of the door opening. It was this larger room whose interior basked in a crimson radiance filtered through dirt-covered glass. From behind the window of what I assume used to be an observation chamber, we saw these abstract shapes shear by like objects caught in a whirlwind. The light flickered as we approached the window. Despite myself, I swiped away the dust with my hand and immediately noticed the surface was electrically charged. I also had trouble breathing when I pressed my face against the murky glass. I can't quite explain it. It stared at me. I mean, I seen rifts in my day, but this one, I tell ya, it looked like Satan's peephole sunken into a mound of dark ash while bending its own light like a shattered mirror. I know ashes are normal around rifts, but we're talking ankle deep. I tell ya, that ain't normal. I just remember it as this evil eye surrounded by this, I don't know, things that were just floating around it like caught in its gravity, but they must have studied it, whoever they were. Instead, they were being studied. Smelling the brimstone, I could feel something looking at us. Amidst that crimson mass floated this disc right in the middle like a convex mirror reflecting our faces all twisted like. And I don't mean in a funhouse ha-ha kind of way. I'm talking contorting our reflections into torturous wretches that were raked over the coals and back. Come, hit me again. You sure? You wanted to hear the story, now hit me again. Good man. Don't enter the temple, the kid said. They're like shaking like little babies as he stared right at that anomaly and backed away slowly, afraid it would, I don't know. He just retreated back inside the collapsing corridors past the small cells. And we sneaked past one of those small cells. That's when we both felt it. Both of us turned toward the open cell door, and I know for a fact we both saw it. Between the torn remains of canvas padding there was a shadow, but not on the wall. Hovering beside one of those tables was the silhouette of a man. Its feet didn't touch the ground. Light of our lanterns didn't do anything. It just floated like a light-consuming void, and it started to grow as if it was feeding on us. We ran. We ran like our lives depended on it. My lantern broke as it collided with a bed frame, and we had to make our way through the dark. That's when 490 darted into our room and just dashed inside the nearest basement. I followed him, and that's when he just stormed the stairs and forced himself through the rubble. And so did I. And then we ran and ran and ran. By the time we stopped running, we were back about between the houses. The sun was setting, and we were lost. Like man, we ran around looking for a way out. We went behind one house. There was the perimeter wall that barred our way. Ran across a mound of rubble, more wall, and this kept happening until finally we found a section that collapsed down a steep ridge. We didn't care anymore. 490 just built up speed like the devil's on his heels and jumped down what was probably 6 feet. I lost my nerve. Instead, I nearly fell as I tried to climb down like an idiot. Hit me again.
Before I do, what happened to 490?
Never seen him again. Bastard took a horse and ran. Didn't even get to ask what that bloody glyph was about.
Then how did you get out of there?
After walking till night fell, I came across a ranch. The family was kind enough to give me shelter for the night. At a table, I told them I was exploring the ruins of Quiescis, telling them I spotted some people there. And that's when the man at the house told me what chilled me to the bone. Bet, senor, no one has been there for years. Not since 2 kids disappeared inside those ruins. Now, how about that drink?
Hello everyone, this is Bunser Bokel of Radio Retro Future. I hope you'll be having a great Halloween this year. Before I sign off, I want to attend you that we currently have a Kickstarter running for our comic series Journey to Elysium. So if you enjoy the concept of the Association of Ishtar and you happen to enjoy space travel and French comics, go check us out on Kickstarter and please back our project. This will help us create more original content and illustrations for our videos as well. So please back Journey to Elysium today and get some amazing free content to boot.